Forgive me, I hate reading in public. Okay, our first reading is Psalm 43, verses 3 through 4. Send me your light and your faithful care. Let them lead me. Let them bring me to your holy mountain, to the place where you dwell. Then I will go to the altar of God, to God my joy and my delight. I will praise you with the lyre, O God, my God. Here ends the psalm.
Stand as you're able. We'll continue with the Lenten sentence. Return.
Lord your God, for he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love.
A little bit longer, so relax. Our gospel reading today is taken from Matthew 25, chapter 25, verses 1 through 30. The Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 25th chapter. At that time, this is Jesus speaking, he says, at that time the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but they did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oils in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became very drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom! Come out and meet him!" Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out." "No," they replied. There may not be enough for both of us. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to do the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the others came. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "Truly I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour." Jesus continues and says, "And again it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to the other 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more bags. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. "Master," he said, "you have entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more." His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." The man with 2 bags of gold also came. "Master," he said, "you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more." His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness." Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. "Master," he said, "I knew you were a hard man, harvesting what you have not sown and gathering what you have not where you had not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you." His master replied, "You wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gathered where I have not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put the money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one that has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have, will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The gospel of our Lord. Woo. Anybody know what the Boy Scout motto is? Always be prepared. Prepare for tomorrow. A little different than what I heard out of my kids, when it came down to doing things and I asked them to do things. Well, why do today what I can do tomorrow? Ever had that happen where, well, why bother doing now? I'll put it off till tomorrow. Tomorrow might be too late. Inviting people to church is needed to be done today. The bridesmaids did not think about later. They thought about then. And only then. If we don't plan for the future, how is there a future? So how many of you think that a company that started 100 years ago, that's still around today, didn't bother planning for the future? I'm so glad I didn't see hands go up. No, it doesn't happen by accident, does it? They plan for the next year, 3 years, 5 years. They do a lot of planning, visioning. Why are we here? How do we stay here? What has to change? So how many of you think that those companies that have been around that long stayed exactly as they were and they didn't change anything? Well, I can think of a company that was around for 100 years that didn't change anything, and they're not here anymore. Remember that company called Eastman Kodak? They don't exist. They exist being bought up by somebody else, and they've been stripped down to almost nothing because they didn't plan and have foresight for the future. In fact, they actually had the future in their hands. So if you came to one of the cottage meetings, you heard me say this. So the people who made different technologies for them, thinking of the future, they brought this machine. And it was a big machine. Had handles on it. And it was like almost 10 pounds. Carry this thing. And you push this button on it, and you hear this tape machine. You remember cassette tapes? Figured you would. Didn't have a reel-to-reel, but it had a cassette tape. So you push this thing, and the cassette tape goes around and around, and it was taking a picture. It was the very first digital camera. Kodak made the first digital camera, and Kodak is not here. Why didn't they do digital cameras? If they had the first one, why didn't they? They took it to the bosses. They took it to the people that are supposed to be thinking about the future and how to plan. Should we continue to develop this? And they said, well, I suppose so, but I hope it fails. Because they liked what they had then. They didn't want to think about the future. They were comfortable with what they had right then and there, now. And it wasn't about the future, thinking about others. And Kodak is not here. I can think of lots of companies that didn't bother to do the planning, long-reach planning, visioning, thinking about the future, and they're not here. If we think only about today, tomorrow might not be there when we don't plan for it. That doesn't mean that we don't live in today and think about today and take care of things today. And we don't need to worry about tomorrow. Jesus tells us don't worry about tomorrow. There's enough worries for today. But he doesn't say don't bother to plan for tomorrow. We are called to plan for tomorrow in everything that we do. Our personal lives, our corporate lives here as a congregation together to take care of people. God's people. The people that God has put us there to take care of. Now, how many of you believe that you have a spiritual gift? Okay, so how many of you believe you don't have any spiritual gifts? Okay, so now I got some people that aren't telling the truth here. Or stubborn. We all have spiritual gifts. Raise your hand if you went to the spiritual gifts course. You have... Gotcha. It's all right. If you went to the spiritual gifts course, you found out you had gifts. Now, who are those gifts for? Are they for you? Who are they for? Others. So God has given you something, and sometimes many things in spiritual gifts, to use them for others. Not for yourself, but to others. Are they any good if you use them only for yourselves? No, they benefit nobody. So if you're a great evangelist, but you don't bother evangelizing, are you going to stand in front of a mirror? No. You can't evangelize yourself. If you're someone that has a gift of helps, you go out and help. If you have the gift of evangelism, you go out and evangelize. Now, of those people that took the course, put your hands up if you had a 10 in one of your categories. Okay? What if you had a 4? It doesn't matter whether you have a 4 or a 10, you have that gift. Now, how many of us had 0 in some categories? That just meant it wasn't the gift that we should be working on. So, I don't have the gift of tongues, nor do I have the gift of interpreting tongues. But we all have gifts. God is telling us, I've given you things. The bridegroom is coming. Be prepared so that you are there when I come. That you've done the things that you need to do to make sure that everything is in place. But it's not about you as much as it is about your neighbor tomorrow. That guy that was up on the screen, bouncing. He's inviting the lady to the church. The young lady. He's inviting her to church so that she can experience what he's already experiencing, so that she knows what it is. He reached out to her over and over again because he's asked her, you heard, over and over again. I keep asking you. And he didn't assume that it was always going to be a no because he asked her every time. We need to ask. We need to be prepared. But we need to do beyond that. I've heard it said that, well, I'm over 65. How many resembles that? I know not you, Alice. I'm over 65, and I've done it all in the church. I don't need to do anything else. Somebody pull out the Bible and show me where it says that. I'd really like to see it. Now, I'm going to pick on you for a second. Can you do all the same things that you could do 20, 30 years ago?
Half of it. Half of it, yes.
Half of it, okay. So there are things that you can do.
Yes.
And so you do them.
It makes me feel good.
And it makes you feel good. So half the things that she can't still do, but she can still do things. God calls you to do things. And I bet you, I know because I was there and I saw you over the nursing home, I bet you're talking to people about God. I bet you're talking to people about your faith. I know you are. I don't even have to be there to hear it, and I know that happens. Bet you can't do the same things that you used to be able to do. But there's things you can do. How about you, Jill? Can't do the same things, but there are things you can do. And it goes all the way around. We are given gifts. We are given abilities. We're given the options to do things to prepare for tomorrow. But we always are called to live as if today were the last day. That's the tension that we live in. Because Jesus will come today. And tomorrow you say, Jesus will come today. Jesus will come today. Because it's important that we believe that Jesus could come at any moment, because we do not know the time, and we want the church, not the four walls here. This place means very little by four walls. And don't take that as bad when I say that, because I know that we have people that go here, that have been here since this site has opened and since the other site has opened, who have laid tile down, who have laid carpet, painted walls, put up a cross. I get that. And it's hard. But this is not what defines us. What defines us is going out and taking care of God's people. That's the church. We gather together. God's given us the ability to do that. So whether we are here, we're over there, we're standing out in the parking lot, doesn't matter. We are church together, and we will continue. But we can only continue if we plan to continue. We cannot continue if we don't plan to continue. If we take a defeatist attitude and say, well, it's all over, it is all over. You remember this guy called Saul, who turned into Paul? He lived as if Jesus were coming back that each day. That's why he said, if you're not married, don't get married. If you don't have kids, don't have kids. Because he believed that Jesus was coming back that day, every day of his life. Okay, so he was wrong when Jesus was coming back. But he's coming back today. Or it's how we live our life, is he's coming back today. But we plan for tomorrow. Because if we're wrong and he doesn't come back today, we need to be here tomorrow and the next day and the next week and the next month and next year and next decade. We need to be here because God's people need to know about God. They need to know that Jesus is God's expression of love for them. That Jesus got up on that cross and died for them, for you. We can't do that if we aren't prepared to be here tomorrow. When we go to heaven, I don't know about you folks, but I want to hear good and faithful servant, well done. We need to include others so that they can hear, good and faithful servant, well done. We need to give of our time, of ourselves, in whatever our gifts are. And if you didn't take that spiritual gifts, we'll be offering it again. I encourage you to come and find out what gifts God has given you, because that will help determine what God is trying to do in your life when you hear what these gifts are. Now, I know some of the people did not have any expectation as what the gifts are. Some came in believing what gifts were and found others. We got a better defining of what spiritual gifts are. Music is not a spiritual gift, believe it or not. But teaching is. And Jenny loves to teach. And she loves to help. She loves to share. Those are part of the gifts. Like I said, tongues is not my gift. Interpreting tongues is not my gift. But we need to foster our gifts. And time, talents, you heard about talent, bags of gold, talents, okay? Talents is more than just what you can do. Talents also means money as well. We need to give to make sure that we are here. We need to give of our time and our gifts. We need to do this not for us, but for the next generations to come, which means that we may have to adapt and be different and not be like Kodak, who didn't want to adapt and doesn't exist. So it's going to look different. How's it going to look? Well, I can tell you what it'll look like next week. It'll be people having 2 services down in Arizona City. Beyond that, I don't know, but we need to envision what it can look like, what it will possibly be. We need to look at, here's a way that it can be, and if that doesn't pan out, we're prepared for this option right here, and if that doesn't pan out, we're prepared for this option. And by the way I think, and my dad is not watching because it's recorded, so I know he's not watching, it's his fault because I think I got option A, and I got option 1 and 2 off of A, and I got option B, and I got 1 and 2 off of B, and I got option C, and I got 1 and 2 off of that. I'm always thinking ahead. Always thinking ahead. And that's what we need to do. Think ahead. When they buried the money, he didn't think ahead. He thought about right then, how do I take care of myself? Because I'm worried what will happen. But the guy with 5 bags, he invested. Right now, anybody got money in the market? Scary, isn't it? Investment has risk. Investment has risk, but God will take care of us. But you have no reward if you don't invest. And it's not just about money. Investing in this congregation, investing in this community, investing in ministries. Investing in yourself so that you can invest in others. This is not a cruise ship. It is an oil tanker, all hands on deck. We got work to do. I hope you're up to it. I believe you're up to it. I believe you want things to be here tomorrow and next week and next month and next year. And I believe God wants that as well. People come and go. Because sometimes people decide not to stay here because they go back home. And they're not able to come back down here. New people move in. But did you know we have a pretty steady population in Casa Grande and in Arizona City? We have 62,000 people here and 15,000 down there. That's a pretty good population. A steady population. Well, not too steady because it's growing. It's growing, which is opportunity, which is investment time to seek it out. Who's up for the challenge? I'm up for the challenge. Let's do it. Who's up for a challenge? Come on. Let's be part of something. God's got something in mind for us. We just need to be ready and plan things out. So I haven't told council this yet. So they're hearing for the first time. We have a council retreat coming up in May. So there's 2 things that we're going to look at. One is, why do we want to be in Casa Grande? Why is God calling us to Casa Grande? But the other flip side of that, is God calling us to be in Casa Grande? Because whatever reason we were in Casa Grande 15 years ago is different today. So we have to decide, is God calling us to be in Casa Grande, and how does that look? Cool thing is, and I'll get back to the second thing that we're going to do. Cool thing is, if you haven't heard, Ace over there, all right, they are not going to be here, but they're going to be in Casa Grande still, which means we are still ministering in Casa Grande. They are teaming up with Seeds of Hope. Anybody heard of Seeds of Hope? They are very community-oriented and make sure that people are fed, make sure people are educated. That's what they do. Hope. They're seeding the hope. Well, they're going to be over at Seeds of Hope, which is a part of the Presbyterian Church here in town with Presbyterian USA that we're in full ecumenical communion with. So we're not going to lose any funding for them. And they are going to actually have a really good spot over there because they have a full-time staff that's able to answer questions when people come in. They're going to have internet over there, places to lock everything up when they're not teaching. it's going to be better than what they had. Wow. So we lost this place, and they are gaining, which means we are gaining, which people will know about adult community education from Central Lutheran being hosted over at Seeds of Hope. Our name is still out there. God's got a plan. That was not one I saw, but God saw it. So the second thing that we're going to be talking about on our retreat is, first, why are we here? Should we be here? And the second thing is, if we're to be here, what do we want from the Anchor Church? And we can't just say, well, we want to grow. What do we want the Anchor Church to do with us? How? We need to get some specifics and say, this is what stable looks like. This is what growing looks like. We need to say, this is what we want to do because God is calling us to do that. They are looking for answers from us because they aren't here. We are. So that's what our retreat is going to be about. Planning for the future, unlike the bridesmaids. Investing into the future, unlike the one that buried the gold. We may not have a lot right this moment. I don't know if we're the 2-bag. Maybe we're a 3-bag. I don't think we're a 5-bag. I don't think we're as low as a 2-bag. I think we're somewhere in between. We just sometimes forget what we have. And we have a lot. And we will be given a lot. I am ready to walk that walk. I hope you are ready to walk that walk. This closure today is not an end. It is a beginning. This is not the last time you hear Central Lutheran in town. I think this is the resurgence of hearing Central Lutheran in town. This is a ground floor opportunity. We have this 10-pound camera. That was it taking the picture. The wheels grinding. Are we willing to invest in it because we want to see it succeed?